Greetings and salutations from the southern tropics of Michigan. I'm Jordan the IT guy, and today let's chat about PowerShell and some alternate PowerShell types above and beyond strings and integers. But before we jump into that, let's go over just a very quick refresher about what we talked about last time. Last time, if you remember, we talked a whole bunch about if we take things like 1 equals 1, we in fact now have a variable called 1 that equals 1. And if we do 1.getType, and we in fact see that 1 is in fact a number, it's a numerical value here. Okay, simple enough. It's in 32, that's its type, that's what it is, it's a number, right? And if we do 2, we can then say equals 2. Okay, and if we do 2.getType and enter, we can in fact see that it's a string, which means that, as you would expect, $1 plus $2 in fact equals 3, and $2 plus $1 in fact equals 21, which is, as you would expect. Probably, maybe. Depends on what you're familiar with. All of this comes down to the fact that PowerShell is very cognizant of type, but it is not strongly typed. Now, a lot of languages out there, there's many languages out there that are strongly typed, right? You have to give a object a type, and that object has to preserve that type and things like that. The PowerShell parser likes to interpret things on the fly, as you can see here as our little example, right? It saw this first one here, so this is a number. Can I convert this into a number? Yes, I can. Then I'm going to do 1 plus 2. In this case, it said this is a string. Can I convert this into a string? Yes, I can. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So it says it should be 2 strings smashed together, which is 21. Simple enough. There are many other types inside of PowerShell. We talked a little bit before about some of them. This include things like XML, things like registries, all kinds of different things out there. There's way too many to talk about in a single video. I will put a link down in the description down below, which will have a link to the PowerShell docs explaining all of the different possible types. We're going to focus on a couple of them. The very first one here that I want to talk about is objects. Now, an object in PowerShell is literally anything. In this particular case, one of the things I think that's really important to know and understand is you can store what are called results in an object, okay? Now, results isn't a type per se, it's just data, right? It's just raw data. So an example of this might be when we talked earlier, we had this thing called the commandlet where we said, hey, let's get all the variables, okay? So if we run get variable like this, we can in fact see all of these things. Now, if we were coding later on and we wanted to reference this data, we wanted to reference these variables, or maybe it was something like get file system or get some files, stuff like that, right? And we wanted to be able to reference back on those objects or the list of things as they were stored, we'd need a way to store them. We wouldn't want to call them every single time. That's performance prohibitive. So if we do something like $results, we can say equals get, variable. Now this is going to take the result of get variable and store it into $results. So if I run $results now, it spits out that list of stuff. Additionally, if I do $results.getType and hit enter, we'll see that it is in fact of type object, right? The results, where it is a object of this data that got output back. Now as a base type of system array, we'll talk more about arrays later on. For right now, just know they're basically a sequence of objects or a bunch of them all in a list. Lists are a little bit different. Don't worry about that. There's differences there. It's not a conversation for today. That being said, there are other things. There's other types of objects out there. The other big one that I want to talk about, because we're going to be talking about it a lot as we go through here, is what's called a hash table. Okay, you'll hear people talking about this all the time. You'll hear about, oh, just stick it in a table, just put it in a hash table, oh, just put it in a PS object, blah blah blah. At the end of the day, what's important to understand is that you are creating something that has what's called key value pairs inside of it, okay? I'm not going to explain too much into that other than that for now, so let's just take a quick glance at this. So I can do something like hash table equals, don't worry about this part, we'll just say thing equals 1, okay? And hit enter. Now if I do hash table dot get type, we can see that this is in fact of type hash table and of type base system.object. And if we go $hash table, we'll see that it has a thing in it, and that thing's value is 1. We'll be going more into hash tables later on as we go along. Just know that they exist and that they are a thing. The one other one here that's pretty cool to know about is that we do have what are called Booleans inside of PowerShell. So one of the things that we can do, we can just do stuff like bool $object equals $true. Now if we say, oops, $OBJ, we can see that it returns a result of true. And if we do object.getType, it is a Boolean. This is super great as we're going along. We may need to do things like ifs and checks against things like that to see if something's true or it's false. All right, I hope this was informative. And as always, thanks for watching. See you next time.